Hello, hello, future viewer. Just give me a second. Welcome to Codes of Harmony. I'm back in my studio, and this is going to be a very unexpected but guided channeled messages, as well as a small tarot reading about Friday the 13th, which was yesterday where I am. I'm in so-called Australia, and I woke up yesterday on Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th has a lot of ominous mythology around it. A lot of people think that 13 is the unlucky number. And so I've been receiving a whole bunch of downloads about Friday the 13th and the historical and religious significance. And then that kind of leads me to research something, or I'll have like a series of synchronicities that will lead me to find some random book or some artwork that I then am drawn to research further, that ends up being connected somehow. And so here we go. Welcome. If it's your first time, thank you for being here. I'm drinking a hot ginger tea to try and ground and kind of flush out my energy of other people's unwanted energy and projections, because there's a lot of that going on at the moment. So maybe that's a message for you. Just like everything that I'll be rambling about that sounds like I'm talking about myself, they're actually codes and messages that I'm sharing with you, the audience, the viewer, the seeker, the truth seeker. I'm an oracle, I'm a seer, and I have been for many lifetimes. So part of the channeling that I'm getting around Friday the 13th is opening up new memories of a past life that I hadn't remembered up until recently, that is connected. So I didn't realize I kind of knew that Friday the 13th. So first of all, there's a lot of buildings, tall buildings, that skip number 13 on the level, on like the building levels. So you literally go all the way up to 12, and then enter in the elevator all the way up to number 12, and then after that there's no 13 and you're straight to level 14. I think that's interesting as a kind of metaphor around growth and ascension. So I've started receiving it as a message around level 13 actually being a significant, important level that we all are actually meant to go through, and that a lot of human complications around religion, history, colonization have encouraged us to be afraid of the number 13 and the day 13. Friday the 13th, so it's a specific fear, mythology and superstition to do specifically with when the 13th of a month lands on a Friday. This usually happens once a year, but the maximum times it can happen is up to 3 times a year. So this is 2023, whenever you're watching this. It's January, and we've just had Friday the 13th of the 1st, 2003. I also am finding more of a connection with numerology. You might be going through the same thing, and it's strange for me because I fucking hate maths. I'm really not good at numbers, and So it's interesting that I seem to be getting a lot more codes and messages that are being presented in the form of numbers and synchronicities between numbers, numerology. So I did know that. Oh, sorry. Then there's also things around Friday the 13th where there's some crazy, like billions of dollars get lost from the world, quote unquote, world economy because people are so superstitious that a lot of people won't fly on Friday the 13th. A lot of people basically won't conduct their businesses in the normal way they would. I think that's really fascinating. And I knew somehow that it was connected to Christianity. And I had heard a long time ago someone talk about it having to do with the Last Supper. In case you don't know, I definitely do not identify at all as a Christian. And as a First Nations woman, I have a very complex understanding relationship with Christianity in terms of course, missionaries and mission culture and the history of missionaries. But yeah, so that's about the Last Supper and that there were 13 guests there. This is where the kind of mythology comes from, the superstition that there were 13 guests there. And one of them, of course, was Judas, who apparently backstabbed and betrayed Jesus. And then, of course, history changed. Then I didn't know that there was also, a similar mythology and I wouldn't say fear, even though there actually is a like a condition which is an actual phobia of the number 13, which is a real thing. And the name for that phobia I know is like a Nordic name. You can see the sun is just going down, so I thought that I should do this reading at sunset as the sun was falling. It felt appropriate. And yeah, so interesting enough, that comes from an old tale and mythology that is also about a dinner, about a feast that was with Odin. I won't go into too much about Viking stuff right now, but yeah, that essentially it was also a case of having 13 guests at this, and that one of them was a snake in the grass, right? And then there is another, I started getting these, started channeling these images from this and remembrance. And when I'm introduced to a new memory of a past life, it'll first come through in kind of like flashes of the place that I was in that time and who I was in that time, and key significant moments from my life. And I worked out that that place was what I now understand to be the hanging gardens of Babylon. Real major stuff, like things I didn't ever imagine that I would be channeling messages from this long ago. It's really mind blowing, and as you can see, I'm in the process of still letting that flow and getting used to it. Blah blah blah. But yeah, there's also which is like the time of the Babylonian time was so long before Christ, BC, and was like an entire civilization that, from my understanding and what I'll learn more of, had a very different connection with nature. And I think there's a lot of histories that are going to be coming out that we didn't know about over the next 2 or 3 years. I will be doing a tarot reading towards the end of this video, so if you're struggling to drift along with this, you're welcome to fast forward like another 5 minutes. But yeah, so there is also a ominous belief in Babylonian times from so long ago where they actually don't use the number 13. Now, they didn't use the number 13 in their kind of number system. So then I woke up yesterday morning and I was woken up by a very clear, loud message, which was the towers. The towers have fallen. Not the towers are falling, not the towers will fall, the towers have fallen. It felt very, very dramatic. I was still traveling, I'd just gotten back. And this very clear message saying the towers have fallen. And then I heard the clear, loud calls of a crow. In my language, it's Wagan. In Wiradjuri language, the Aboriginal language of my tribe. And of course, that's also the ravens that were very connected and very important in Viking culture. Ravens have symbologies through lots of different things. And birds have been coming through in a lot of my meditations, and a lot of the codes I've been receiving from nature are coming along with the presence of birds. I was woken up by this calling of a crow, a wagon. And it was just out, I was staying in a hotel on a certain level, and it was like at eye height on this, I don't know, a little bit higher on top of this building, and it seemed to be calling in a way that was a little bit, I'm not going to lie, it was a little bit chilling. And I filmed it, and so I am going to post it directly after this. It's going to be part of this chain of messages. So now I've been drawn to do a tarot reading asking about that 13th floor that we are missing. And I'm getting the guidance that I'm receiving, and again, this video is for entertainment purposes only, as we say here on YouTube. You're on codes of harmony. My name is Willow, or 9 Lives. Turns out there's a whole lot more than 9, so that's also why I'm not using that name as much anymore, which is really funny. Just trying to be open to being a pure channel that is open to the messages that are coming through at this time. Patience and time is becoming very sticky and in kind of hyperflex is what I'm hearing. Been getting a lot of messages about lots of people getting reclamation of self and a reclamation of the inner child, and a lot of that is actually coming via remembering other lives and remembering ancestral wisdom that is in our DNA. And you might be able to gently hear in the background, since I realized that since I've started receiving codes and messages about this past life, I'm a musician as well, and I've started connecting into kind of Babylonian music. I'll be trying to link that if I can remember underneath. That can be a message for you that maybe if you do know you have some ancestry that you want to connect with more, that maybe doing it through music is going to be healing and beneficial for you. This is the clear and divine balance being most beneficial for everyone involved. This is a general reading, tarot reading. That's way too many. The one that has flipped over the right side, of course, is the hanged man, or the hanged person, as I like to say. I think, is this the Light Seers Tarot? No, the Wandering Star Tarot, I think is what this is called. I'll again try and link this. Asking for divine guidance about what is it that the number 13, the level that we skip, and have done so since a certain time in history. And what is that? I'm getting the feeling like it has a lot of Scorpio energy. It has a lot of, it's that real dark place in shadow work that you don't want to look at. It's the very depth of your karma that you've carried for lifetimes, that you're even potentially carrying for other people from other lifetimes, from your lineage, from the karmic choices and bonds of those that have come before you, as well as yourself before. So we have the hanged person, the Ace of Wands, and the Five of Swords. I will note that both of these depictions, the Ace of Wands and the Five of Swords, also both have snakes in them. And I think that's the main purpose of the imagery coming through at the moment. I'm just holding them up for you to have a look if you would like. And of course, one of the biggest sayings that come to mind when we think about Judas, or the symbol, the metaphor, the psychology behind somebody being a quote-unquote Judas. A betrayer is being a snake in the grass, being somebody that's hiding in plain sight, somebody with ill intention. Why will we need this? Why would this be on the 13th floor? The snake is on the 13th floor. So we can't pretend the 13th floor doesn't exist. Oh gosh. I'm now seeing a quite terrifying image of just elevator doors opening on the 13th floor, going ding, and the light slides to number 13. And the elevator doors open, and there's just a long hallway with many doors going off with this snake slithering. And it's like the energy of like it's their territory. It's very much taken over. It's a very intense image. I would like to stop seeing that for now. Thank you. Five of Swords, upheaval, conflict, loss. Ace of Wands. It was the other way around, wasn't it? The Ace of Wands, career, beginnings. So beginnings is also what I imagine to happen sometime coming out of the position of the hanged person, which is where we go to understand things from a new perspective. That could also be what this is talking about, is having to face the 13th floor. Like maybe Friday the 13th could actually be seen as this kind of scorpionic holiday where we actually do shadow work the whole day. And instead of taking this a fearful, ominous, unlucky day, the other message that I received as I was thinking the bird that visited that it was like their vocal cord. It's like, and when I put the video up, you'll see they are like singing from the depths, like they're calling and hollering. At first I was like, are they trying to call out to a mate or a flock that they've lost? But it seemed to feel like something quite different. And it was on the top of a tower. Very ominous again. But there is this, I'm hearing a lot of people confronting and having to face mortality, having to face the idea of mortality with their own conscience and that of their forefathers and foremothers and forebears. So we need to go on to the 13th floor to be able to do what we do in the position of the hanged person, which is understand things in an entirely new way. I'm being drawn to also mention that it is the year of the rabbit in Chinese astrology. I have lots of different heritage, but I also have Chinese heritage. So I'm intentionally trying to connect into that part of me and part of my lineage more and my family. Of course, I'm mentioning that also because the idea of a predator and a prey is coming through at the moment. The snakes are on the 13th floor. The snake within, this of course can also reference your kundalini energy, your raw sexual desires, nature, carnal nature, and the way that's affecting your throat chakra, your ability to show up, to express, to move past the Five of Swords. Friday the 13th. There's also crazy sales that happen. I'm using that term, but wild sales that occur where things are priced at really, really lower prices. So then you have, you hear of these stories or see these footage of Friday the 13th sales, like Black Friday sales of people fighting over the products. Please give me clear and divine guidance to be most beneficial for everyone involved. What is on the 13th floor? What do you need on the 13th floor? The tower. Of course, the tower. Sure, that's too many cards. Okay. I'm getting a lightness in my head. I'm getting quite a lot of head spins all of a sudden. Feeling very drifty. But the Tower card has, of course, come out, which is perfect because, as I was saying, the message, the loud, clear Friday the 13th message that I received, me, codes of harmony, me, the seer, the vessel, the channel, received, because the Tower has fallen. The Tower represents the old ways that need to fall away. The Tower represents can be an oppressive nature, it can be, God, I'm seeing so many images. There is a tower within, as much as there is a tower that we stand within. People are panicking, and some of us have made it out of the tower in time. That then means that we need to watch the tower burn from afar. And that comes with its own grief, with its own pain, with its own trauma. Those who remained in the tower too long need to be responsible for their choices that kept them there. And they are also the ones that they have to understand that they needed to be in the tower at that time, when the lightning struck the crown, which represents awakening, which represents the crown chakra being activated via this lightning that is hitting the crown of the tower. This can also speak of government structures, schooling systems, oppressors. At this time, I take a moment to think about Iran, what is taking place. I take a moment to think about the voices rising up, the people of different genders, the underdogs being given a voice. Now I'm hearing what would guard. Okay, let's go again. So I'm seeing the three-headed dog that guards the gates of hell mythologically, and I think that is it Greek, maybe Roman. Mythology. I'm seeing the three-headed dog that guards the gates of hell. I'm also being shown the scale of justice, which to pass into the underworld, your heart is meant to be weighed on these scales of justice. Your heart on one side of the scales and a feather on the other. And the idea is that for it to be balanced, if your heart is not too heavy, if you have a pure heart, if you have and then I guess the idea is that that decides where you go, where your soul goes. So now they're saying, okay, if that's the case, what would be guarding? What would be guarding the 13th floor? I'm seeing a whole bunch of jerseys, like athlete jerseys, and they're showing like a whole team of football players with their backs turned to me, all in chronological order. In terms of the numbers on the back of the jerseys, and number 13 is missing. That's interesting. Is this meant to be? Okay, that's unusual. I don't know if that's the right card. Okay, I get it. So we have the Sun card, and I asked what would be guarding the 13th floor. The Sun is interesting because, of course, people speak about hell being the hottest place. And I've been getting a lot of channel messages about volcanoes and lava. But the Sun actually represents illumination and is often seen as the happiest card. Okay, it's seen as the happiest card in the tarot deck, the Sun card. Illumination, brightness, often this idea of feeling of joy. But illumination, also Leo energy. So happiness, joy, happiness, this smiling face is what is guarding the entrance to the 13th floor. We then have the Fool card, who of course is always depicted as stepping off a cliff or a small, we don't know whether that's miles down or it's 2 meters down, is stepping off into the unknown. And on this particular set of tarot, it has potential, risk, innocence, and desire, as well as purity. So the words that are jumping out for me there, and sorry, on the sun card it has light, life, energy, light, life, energy. And my eyes are being very drawn to the heart chakra, having a sun behind the heart chakra, and what reminds me of a third eye in the heart chakra. So it's almost as if her third eye is sitting in her heart. That's just surprising to me that is what's guarding. But I guess that's about finding a way to hold on to the sun, to remain in the light, open to the road, open to what is to come, with an open heart space, at the same time as stepping into the 13th floor, at the same time as being able to look into your darkest, deepest shadows, at the same time as being able to confront the heaviest things in your shadow work and in your karmic bonds and in your karma from past lifetimes. So the sun sits below the Hanged Man, and the Fool sits below the Ace of Wands, which also makes sense. They keep showing me the elevator door opening, but I think they're doing that. The symbol of that is that it's actually the fear of the shock and fear of the idea of it being in the snake's territory, that they own that level. They own level 13. And when we say there's a snake in the grass, that's because we're on other levels and the snake has made its way out of level 13. This is sounding all very abstract. I hope that this is making sense to somebody, future viewer out there. Oh, no, I do not think that is for you. Please need clear and divine guidance to be most beneficial for everyone involved. Okay, it is for you. Same card jumped out twice after that shuffle, and it is the King of Swords, who in this particular tarot deck is depicted with all of the elements around, which is interesting. It's kind of water and then lots of air, the clouds behind him. Just give me a second. The sun in this tarot deck is a divine feminine. The Fool card is a divine feminine, and the King of Swords is a divine masculine. And this is what's come out when I've asked what is guarding, protecting the 13th floor, the energy of Friday the 13th, which I'm being guided to repeat is something that we're actually meant to face. And I think a lot of problems in people's ascension, a lot of wars and complications around religion and divinity and connection to nature occur because of it's like this piece of ourself that we've been like an illusion of not being able to go into the 13th floor, because they're also showing this hallway with the snakes, with multiple passages going off it, and I can't see into those passages. So in order to be able to do that, I would have to walk, risk the sun and the purity of the Fool, and like the Fool, I would have to walk down. I'm seeing so many visions. They're showing me Babylon again. Hanging Gardens of Babylon. They're talking about frequencies. And they are showing me the Emerald City. And I've been thinking of receiving downloads about the Emerald City being green. And the reason it was green is because it was actually a reference to the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. I've also started understanding my connection with certain music and certain people from that lifetime. Okay, so what do I want now? What am I to do now? What am I being guided to do? If you're enjoying this or it's beneficial, if you're resonating with this, take a second to click like. It will really help the video get to more people, as well as, of course, energetically be a way to thank me and acknowledge the work I'm doing. Now I'm going to be moving to a new oracle deck that I have called, it seems very appropriate, and I bought it, I think, maybe a week before Friday the 13th, which, by the way, I absolutely didn't realize what was coming up, but I did get 13 is a number that's been coming through in the volcano codes. So, and I kept getting this ominous feeling like something's going to happen on the 13th of January. But I hadn't actually gone and looked at what day that was, so I didn't actually realize it was a Friday the 13th until the last 2 or 3 days. I got this about a week ago, and it is called the Deep, Dark, and Dangerous Oracle by Stacy DeMarco, illustrated by Kinja Britsky. Excuse the pronunciation. This sort of looks like, if you're interested. And I think I got it because I felt like there was a lot of heavy energy coming through Capricorn season, and a lot of fear-based projections and hate, and people really struggling. Like people can't avoid their shadow work, and those who are just going through absolute hell on earth, as they say. So this has all different mythical beings that have to do with the darker myths from different places and times. And it has, I'm going to read a little bit from the book. My words are getting very good, which is like I'm getting so many visions. It's fucking wild. Okay. So I'm going to put them. Please give me clear and defined guidance for the most beneficial for everyone involved. There are a lot of spirits around at this time demanding that we step into the 13th floor. Shadow work. But like this is like shadow work on a next level. What do we need to understand? Who can teach us about the 13th floor? I'm hearing the 13th floor within, the 13th floor without. And then they're showing the Tower card within the center of your, like a sternum being replaced by the Tower card. By the Tower that is in the Tower card. Okay. Oh, my nose. Oh. and codes of harmony. Thank you for being here on this strange journey. Okay, I'm just going to quickly get through this and then I'm going to finish up in a minute. And who knows, this might become something I read more into, or it might become like an annual thing that I do. Feeling like a shaky, like my body almost feels like it's shaking, but it's not. It's just funny because that's something that happens for my condition anyways. Like the nervousness of just elevator doors open. I'm going to pull 4 cards and then choose 1 or 2 to read out. And that will be your Friday the 13th message for January 2023. So that's 3 cards I've got. So I feel so much emotion. Please give me clearance by advice from most beneficial for everyone involved. I'm an intuitive tarot reader. So, and I have very high level of, very high activation level of my clairs. Which means I experience things as I move them. So if I start crying, don't worry, they're not my tears, as say, oh no, that is a card that I pulled the other day and it was haunting. That's not meant to be there. Okay. So give me 1 more second. For the collective, please. Give me 1 more card. Friday the 13th, 2023. Friday the 13th, 2023. 13th floor within, 13th floor without, 13th floor within, 13th floor without. Let's keep saying that. That's too many cards. Be you, don't be someone else. Be you. Every part of the tower. Wow. Wow. Okay. So first, and I'll be showing you these beautiful images. First, we have the dragon who speaks of treasure. Number 4. Sorry if that sound. Incredibly messy days. What's that? Sorry. Okay, I need to focus on that. Yes, you need to focus on that. Just go into the 13th floor. Sorry about the noise. I think it is the light. The lamp was pushing back onto the wall. Interesting with the sun carving here. Dragon, speaking of treasures. Vampire, speaking of hunger. Number 28. Number 2. Silky, speaking of freedom. Silky is a mythology around women who are seals, or they wash up as a seal, but they're actually a woman. Then we have Kali, speaking of love, and then this just slips out right at the end, like it was like, oh, you're not going without me, kind of thing, but it is Paka, speaking of mischief. So treasure, hunger, freedom, love, mischief. And then the haunting card that came out that I didn't want to put in is just like creepy as can be. Fetch, a fetch, which is a mirror. And this is I think an Irish mythology of seeing somebody who is your double, who is like a doppelganger for you, which is funny because I did some channeling around what I was calling spiritual doppelgangers. Now I'm going to just quickly pull myself out of that and choose what I want to read out. So I'm going to use a die. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Please give me clear and divine guidance being most beneficial for everyone involved. Six. Of course, it's fetch. Number 6. So I guess I'm reading this again. And of course, that's the whole thing, right? Like maybe it's also a symbol for me because I have actually experienced over the last year, like it's been happening my whole life, but more intentionally and obviously over the last year or two, I have had this creepy experience of doppelgangers, of people wanting to steal my work, imitate my work, even replicate some of my art, my voice, my struggle, my activism, sometimes even as a form of ill intent. Other times, and like I remember having this conversation when I was in like year 3 or something in primary school. And I was incredibly upset that somebody had copied my work for their project, had copied an idea that they heard me talking about. And I spoke to the teacher, and the teacher said, well, actually, copying, being a copycat, being a copycat is the biggest form of a compliment, is what she said. And I just was mortified. I was like, that's absolutely not a compliment to me. That's disrespectful. So maybe that is part of my 13th flaw, is shadow work and death of the ego work around being in the spotlight, around creating something and defending it, and feeling comfortable with people putting it on a pedestal, or wanting to replicate it for their own, because of their own insecurities and their own lacking. And that is something that I can't do anything about, except for, of course, choose my own reaction. Because it did creep me out when I got this card the other day. Okay, number 37. Please click like if this is resonating with you. If you feel drawn to, please subscribe so you can hear more of my strange channeled messages and ways of bringing you different codes in order to be able to grow and evolve. Just going to light a tiny bit of incense for this. If you are connecting a lot to what I'm doing, then you might want to take a second to do the same. Sage for you. And I'll try and hold up this Friday the 13th looking image of Fetch mirror. There are different parts of yourself that can do different tasks. Look for the real self within the shadow. What you see in the mirror may not always be true. Society can sometimes dictate what your appearance should be to fit societal norms. Discard this ideal if it doesn't fit or benefit you. The flip sides of both of them are reflection and reality. All that glitters is not gold. When I was a child, my grandmother, who still carried with her stories of Ireland, told me about a fetch that had happened to someone the family knew. A fetch is the Irish tradition. A fetch in the Irish tradition is the unlikely. Sorry, let me move this candle. And I want to hold this as close as I can. Actually, no, I'm just going to hold it up for a second, have a look at it. Noting the birds in the background. I was talking about the ravens before. For those who are seeing impaired, I'll quickly describe it. It's an image of a mirror being held up by a person in a white dress with hills and then clouds in a similar shape behind, with birds and a light coming from behind. And then there are two identical divine feminines in the image, back to back, in the mirror that is being held up. Okay. I know as a child, my grandmother, who still carried with her stories of Ireland, told me about a fetch that had happened to someone the family knew. A fetch in the Irish tradition is the unlikely appearance of someone's exact double, like doppelganger. We often now refer to someone who looks like someone else as a doppelganger, which is, of course, the German term for a double. Apparently, a girl was out walking. Please remove this energy. Okay. Please give me clear and divine guidance. Apparently, a girl was walking out early one morning in her town and was astounded to meet another girl who looked exactly like her. This other girl had an excuse for being there and said she was from another city, and just as amazed to see her double as the girl in the town. The first girl invited the second girl to have dinner with her family that night. She wanted to show this mystery girl to her family, knowing they would be amazed. She shared her address and gave her a time, and they agreed to meet. When the girl returned home to get ready for work, she told her mother about what she had seen. Her mother, knowing the law of the fetch, was of course very afraid. She begged the young woman not to go to work because she feared for her and explained that this person she had met, who was a mirror image of her, may well be a warning of her own death. So, obviously, again, coming back to facing mortality and the self. And I think there are elements of the idea of judging you being your final judge um, before you leave this realm. The young woman laughed about this and told her mother to expect this other young woman at dinner time. Neither would make it to dinner. The young woman inexplicably collapsed on her way home and passed away. Her mirror image did not show up at home. According to my gran and most of the Irish stories, fetches are not in themselves harmful, but a premonition of what is to come. They are spectral versions. They are spectral versions of the self, kind of alter ego, if you like, or an extension of the soul, a mirror. Irish mythos states that seeing a fetch in the morning means death, but seeing one at the end of the day means a long life ahead. The Irish mythos is also, in Irish mythos and also in the Norse, an alter ego who looks like the person but is not, or an animal that one shape shifts into, is a way to connect with the gods and listen to what they have to say. So I feel like that is it. That is the difference, right? Is returning the gaze of the fetch. Looking the fetch in the eye. Because the fetch is a mirror of the self, the darker self. And a connection to nature, because when I think about and connecting with my own connection with Viking heritage, I think about connection to nature when they talk about the gods speaking to them. That's so much about nature. And then I think about the term carnal nature and true nature, hidden nature. The idea of a double or another part of the self that has different jobs or tasks is not unusual in these traditions. We are not what the mirror sees. We are so much more than that. And the plant companion is Coprosma repens, spelt Coprosma, new word, Repens. And the common name for that is mirror plant. And the crystal companion that will help you with this process of challenging what is on your 13th floor is pyrite. Whew. Hearing energy from my light force, from my light body, from all of the connections I just stepped into. Thanking you for being here and being open to finding out what's on the 13th. Yeah. And who knows what else is going to come, what's coming next. Oh, no way. I just picked up the, the last thing, I just picked up the Oracle deck, and it's so beautiful. There is Nyx, I think it's Nyx, not Nyx, it's Nyx, and that speaks of darkness. And the image is just quite profound, of this giant this kind of electrical storm of two different colors coming together with light in the middle. And this kind of face of an elder in this shroud of darkness that is peacefully sitting with the storm inside of them. And it's like a sense of the kind of yin and yang, which is also an image that has been coming up in my astrals a lot and my meditations. It's number 19. As they want me to read it to you, the last number. Number 19. Nyx. I feel like it's Nyx. Maybe it's Nyx. No. Darkness. And I won't read the whole thing. The darkness is necessary. It is the place of possibility and rest. It is natural and beneficial to experience some cycles of darkness. You can illuminate your way through dark times. Not everything unpleasant is evil. The duality is dark and light. The embodiment of the night. Oh, is this the Egyptian goddess? The embodiment of the night is the goddess Nyx. She was one of the primordial or original deities emerging at the beginning of the universe. Okay. Her fathers were Chaos and or Phanes, one of the oldest of the gods. She fell in love with Erebus. So this is actually sounding more like what is this from? One of the oldest gods. She fell in love with Erebus, Erebus, darkness. It was darkness, and created Ether, which reminds me of ether, light, and Hemera, which is day, which was birthed out of love. Interesting, because Kali came up before, and maybe we don't know what is in the other pathways on the 13th floor. We don't know what is in the other passageways beyond the scary, ominous hallway before us. That is the territory of the snake, the territory of the shadow, of the dark carnal nature that can and does have people being snakes in the grass, harming each other. How much of that is the darkness? What happens when one of those snakes accidentally, um, is no longer on that floor in their own space? Maybe they're actually fearful themselves. And who knows how much love is actually on the 13th floor. She self-created the infamous 3 fates, as well as deception. Sorry, 3 fates. The moray, as well as apete, deception, dolus, nemesis, balance and retribution. So this is like Eris, strife and discord, and charm, ferryman. What? She created ferrymen of the underworld. So this is like the beginning. This just explains so many of the visions that have been happening in the volcano codes, the cloud codes, the ravens, and of course the black. And there's a creation story and dreaming story to do with First Nations people here as well, to do with the Wakan. And when colour was created. In the Orphic tradition, Uranus, the god of the sky, was also the child of. See, I recognized it as Egyptian. Doesn't matter, that's all thinking stuff. She is often referred to as the Dark Mother in Greek mythos. Okay, so this is actually across many different cultures. I'm feeling. Yes, that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm being guided to say. Oh, this is a hard reading. Elementally, a first goddess who begat many other important deities. As she is one of the oldest and strongest of the Greek deities, even the mighty Zeus is said to not provoke her. After angrily chasing Hypnos into Nyx's cave, after being tricked by him and his own wife Hera, Zeus will go no further than the entrance. Okay, now I see. So the entrance, of course, the entrance of the 13th floor, which again is the dark shadow work, the mirror self, the fetch. Because your fetch is going to be in there. Would go. So Zeus, of course, Zeus is known to be so brave and big. Wouldn't go in any further into the cave, the dark cave. Okay. Looking at most of her progeny, it would be easy to think that Nyx is evil, or that her darkness would have a negative judgment. She should not be viewed this way, winged and beautiful. She is simply the night. No judgment or whether that is better than the day. Paradoxically, she creates light and day. She brings balance with nemesis and philotes, and the keras. She brings rest with hypnos and Thanatos. She just represents the darker nature of how the world works. The plant companion showed along the time in this depiction. The plant companion is the night blooming jasmine, and the crystal companion, of course, is the dark, powerful onyx, which is a huge metaphor for this entire reading, which is just about to hit over an hour. There we go. This is Codes of Harmony. My name is Willow. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. One, 11, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16. Lots of love from Codes of Harmony.